Well, good morning. Again, as I was saying, the, the focus has been a lot of times not knowing exactly what you want to talk about, but just feeling what needs to be discussed. I'm looking at something today, and I want to continue to talk about discipleship because I think I see something here. And but I want to look at it this morning from a slightly different perspective, and keeping in mind that on last week that we one of the things we ended on anyway with George Watson having a question asking about discipleship and apostles, and hopefully if you've logged on today, we will get into that as well in our explanation. Okay. But I'm hoping to look at this a little bit today. On last week, of course, when we were in John, we looked at it from the number 12. And the number 12 being such a prominent number in the Bible, we decided to take a closer look at it and even go back to the earlier scriptures where it is first mentioned. And we started looking at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the 12 sons of Jacob and how that all developed and what that entails going forward in the Bible, because I think Sheldon and Pastor did an awesome job of picking out 12s in the scriptures and kind of giving some spiritual meaning to them so that we could see them. And all of that was not just happenstance. All of that is talking about what has developed, the spiritual development of mankind as he inwardly looks inside of himself and sees become one with his soul and recognize who and what he is. So that's what the 12 represent. It is not so much as the number as it is a concept of awareness, of moving to a place where you recognize that you are one with the universe. And it talks about that journey. And now, through that recognition, the authority that you have. Okay? So that's what we talked about last week. And even in saying that, I'm leaving out a lot of detail in what was discussed. And hopefully, if you have any questions, we can get into that further today as the discussion goes along. Any questions before I move on? Okay. I want to look at this today from a different perspective. If you will, let's look at Genesis chapter 12. Chapter 12 would be the discussion, but I'm going to go back to the latter part of chapter 11 verse, and a couple of things I want to talk about. You just submitted to get there, Genesis, and if you would, there's something else I'm going to plug in very briefly. Put your thumb on Joshua chapter 24. I usually don't like to do this. I don't like flipping back and forth. And we're going to do this, and I'm going to show you two verses, 24. And we're going to come back to Genesis, okay? So I'm going to read for you first Genesis chapter 11, verses 31 and 32, and then I'm going to read Joshua 24, verses 1 and 2. And we'll have a discussion before we go into Genesis 12, okay? Again, for anyone who just came on, let's look at Genesis chapter 11, verses 31 and 32. And then we're going to flip over and look at Joshua 24, 1 and 2. And again, as I said, I don't like the flipping stuff, but there's something here I want to tie in that I think is very necessary to gain some understanding. Okay? Now, verse 31 and 32 in the 11th chapter of Genesis says, and Terah took Abram his son. Okay, Terah is as they're saying, this is Abraham's father. I kind of started, with the verse starts with a conjunction, meaning it's joined on to something here. So just to give you an idea of what is happening, this is talking about the birth of Abraham and his brothers and the descendants of Shem. This is after the flood, and these are the descendants of Shem. And it talks about Abraham's lineage as he grows up, as he was born, and then it gets into his life. So this verse starts with Terah, his father, and Terah tells Abram, and he notices Abraham is not changed to Abraham yet. This is the same person, but this is Abram at this point. He took his son and Lot, the son of Haran, who was Abram's brother, his grandson, and Sarah, his daughter-in-law, who was Abram's wife, and they went out together from Ur of the Chaldees in order to enter the land of Canaan. And they went as far as Haran and settled there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Okay, Abraham's father dies. Okay, look at Joshua 24, verses 1 and 2. It says, then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel in Shechem and called for the elders of Israel for their heads and their judges and their officers. And they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, from ancient times. Now this is the journey that has started. This is in the wilderness. This is after the Egypt experience. Okay, so the Abraham experience led up to them being in Egypt, and this is not necessarily a discussion of Egypt, but we could certainly talk about what takes place in Egypt, which I think is another discussion in and of itself, but it certainly bears mentioning here. So this is I read to you the beginning of that journey, how they started here. This whole thing starts with Abraham, and then as it goes on, Abraham, Isaac, and even the sons of Abraham all end up in Egypt. Okay, so this is them coming out of Egypt at this point. Okay, and then it says the officers and they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, thus said the Lord God of Israel, from ancient times until your father lived beyond the. Hello? We're in Joshua, y'all, chapter 24, verses 1 and 2. Let me read you, verse 2 again. And Joshua said to all the people, thus said the Lord God of Israel, from ancient times your fathers lived beyond the river, namely Terah. Beyond the river, namely Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. That's the part I wanted to get to. And they served other gods. So you look at this, and if we go back to Genesis chapter 1, I want to make a point here. Genesis chapter 11, verses 31, 32. And it talks about Terah, Abraham's father, dies at this point. This is not necessarily talking about a physical death. I want to look at this from a spiritual perspective. What this saying is, him serving other gods, he reached his limit. He reached a point where he was no more effective on a spiritual level. So let's talk about those other gods for a minute, because what we are wanting to look at today and talk about here is the fact that this journey can be inward or it can be outward, depending on what is important to you. So you can turn inwardly to look at who you are and see that there is something strong within your mind. There is a pull there that is pulling you in a direction that is maybe even a bit foreign to you at first, but the vibration is there that tells you, I'm familiar with this. This is a place that I visited before, and you continue on this journey, and then the comparison is made whether or not you want to continue because the outward you sees the material things and the other things that your mind has told you is important. So if you look at Joshua, those other gods are not always materialistic. It doesn't always have to be money. It doesn't always have to be silver and gold. It can be status. It can be religion. It can be your knowledge of something. But you make the choice whether or not you want to continue on this journey and become spiritual or move to the place where enlightenment becomes the key factor in your life. Any questions at all? I'm hoping I'm being clear with this. Any questions, or is there anyone that can see this and want help explain it?
Right.
Yes, sir.
In Joshua,
Yes, sir.
when you said in verse 2, and Joshua said to all the people, thus says the Lord, God of Israel, this, from ancient times, your fathers lived beyond the river, Torah, right? When he says river, he's speaking of the life of Abraham's father. He's not talking about a river, a body of water, as much as he's speaking to the life of Abraham's father. So when you say that it's not necessarily a physical death, living beyond the life, is speaking about living beyond what Abraham's daddy represented, or what his daddy taught or thought. And when they feel beyond that, it's that means that Abraham's daddy died. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes. Yes.
It's a death to what he believed.
Okay. Does that make sense, y'all? Does that make it clear?
Because if we see Abraham's daddy as religion, right?
Yes.
And we see where we are now. When you begin to live beyond that religion, that means that religion is dead to you. So Abraham's dad was dead to them when they began to see beyond what he was teaching or what he believed. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Keep in mind that two pastors, it says they, so it is also including the brother. In other words, this was what he taught his sons. Yes. This is what he taught his sons. So, and what?
Ron,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Audrey.
Hey, Audrey.
I think the mention of the river is significant in that yesterday we were talking about river crosses or being able to transcend something. So this is a kind of transcendence when because they're leaving that old religious way behind and they're heading into something new.
That is an awesome observation, and that's what that was the kind of where I was trying to get with it. This is a conscious decision that he makes because this goes against everything that he has been taught, and it looks like this was a comfortable place, if you will, for the rest of his family. But this is a place, and the hope of this, my hope comfortable with there because something tugging inside of you let you know that there was more. So I'm again looking at this and I'm hoping that we can see this from a personal perspective and see that this is talking about us. And again, you have a choice to make whether or not your journey, because you're going to take a journey, but will your journey be one of the exterior means where you are led by your mind, which means that you can be influenced by everything that happens around you, or is it an internal journey where you become aware of who you are and maybe even cause you at some points in this journey to stand by yourself and what you are willing to give up or to see truth and become truth. So yeah, that's an excellent observation. Anyone else?
Yeah, go on.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, going on.
That's not a problem. Going back even to Genesis 11:32, where Terah died in Sharon. Sharon does mean mountaineer, but it also embodies a place dried up or parched with the sun. That alludes to what you were just talking about in terms of getting stuck. Parched. But excuse me, getting stuck to a place that is not providing proper nourishment, etc.
Oh, I like that.
That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah. Okay. The point I'm making in this is I became aware of something that a lot of people this morning are sitting in similar places across this land and maybe even globally, and with the Bible open, some type of scriptures that they may be studying, and but not all of us are in the same place, meaning that there are those who have made the decision that I do not want this journey. I want a controlled journey. I want a journey that I can manipulate and use as I will. I want a journey that fulfills the obligation that I'm doing what is right. But I cannot afford for this to cost me anything. I cannot afford to put too much into this because it takes away from who I have built myself to be. Those gods could be almost anything you set your mind to that are important. And my thing is in looking at that and understanding truly the concept of discipleship and of being an apostle, what is your obligation to those? What is your obligation to those who do not see the need to move forward? So I'm looking at this and even making a comparison to us from the 12, and that's why the 12 disciples of Jesus, and that's why it was so important to me to look at 12 and we discuss that because it is a growth thing, it is a developmental thing. The authority is not given just because you have 12. The authority is given because you have developed that. You are being the one who have scratched and clawed and given up everything and come to a place through meditation and prayer that you desire to be here at all costs. And you've gone through those immature stages. You've gone through the battles that you've had with your religious concepts, and you come out to this on top of things, meaning that you may not still have all the answers, but you know that I want to continue to move toward the light. I want to be loving kindness. I want to be compassionate. That has to be most important thing that keeps you going. Love has to be the catalyst that keeps you driving you forward. So that's what I'm seeing here, and hoping that we can all kind of look at this further in Genesis 12 and kind of pull it together. Okay, questions or comments? Okay. Now, I mentioned Abram's journey. I want to read this because we all go on a journey. You're on a journey whether you recognize it or not. The biggest thing is most of us try to control that journey. I was joking last night, we were talking, Pastor and Kathy and I, that several years ago, if I had seen the path that this was going to put me on, I'm not sure I would have met any of y'all. Because I was more comfortable where I was. I'm glad of what I see now. But when I couldn't see this, it was in the middle of something that was very hard for me. I wondered if of God, am I in the right place? Because things were difficult. And not to say that those same things would be difficult for you, because that was my journey. I was trying to hold on to things that were important to me. And believe me, I tried hard to hold on to them. And I had a decision to make. We can drop you off right here. You don't have to continue this. Do you want to continue? That's the question that all of us have to answer. So Abraham's journey, he is building something. He is not only strengthening himself, he is freeing up the land. If you look at Aramaic understanding and looking up land, is talking about taking you to another place of awareness. So if you look at this, as I said, these are two journeys, the inward journey and outward journey. The earthly journey that you see before us now that is taking place is one of selfishness. It's one of division. It is one of non-inclusiveness. You get yours, I get mine. It is a journey of have and have nots. And this journey that Abraham was on, the journey that we are undertaking, is a way of cleansing. It is a way of refreshing the land. And God wants this so much that he calls the whole world for us to see it. For us to see it. And we're in the middle of this now. And we're going to get stronger. We're going to get better at this. Our vision is going to get clearer, and we're going to continue work going forward. I'm going to read this, and then we'll stop and talk about it for a minute. Now, the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country, from your relatives, and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. And I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and I'll make your name great. And so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And I like this part. It does not say you may, and it says, and in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. All the families of the earth shall be blessed. So let's talk about this for a minute. What does it mean? Because as I'm saying, I'm hoping that all of us can see ourselves in this journey. Because this is telling you all this stuff that is important to you, all this stuff that has shaped you and has allowed you to develop who you are, and has brought you your possessions or your wealth or your status in life. I want you to put that away. I want you to walk away from it. And that's what I'm saying. There may be pauses in your life that these are some of the things that you take a second glance at. Even the authority in your life. Walk away from your father's house. This is what you've known all your life. This is no longer your protection. The things you seek, this cannot protect you. Let's talk about it. Anybody? Nobody? Okay.
Yeah, Ron, if I may, and what you mentioned, it just makes me think about, the transformation to a new you. If you talk about that it needs to be a personal journey, and I know that when we first started, our pastor mentioned that I am that I am, and we talked about I am consciousness. But I just want to, read something, just from a book I was reading, Howard Fargo, and what you just mentioned, the journey of self-awareness and self-creation is the very intent of life. But the capability to understand your true nature, expand your consciousness, and know thyself is a birthright. And what I'm receiving, in the spirit, is our birthright to know who we are. It's our birthright to know our true self. It's our birthright, to be able to understand it's the journey, that we create. So I just wanted to, mention in terms of what I'm receiving from you thus far. You're talking about the importance of just, of knowing thyself, but more importantly, it's our birthright. So I just want to say that thought.
Thank you, George. That sums it up very well. Yes. Thank you. Someone else.
Hey, Ron, and good morning, everyone. When we talk about this journey, one thing I come to grips with real quick, I got to do the journey by myself. Now, if I have support along with the journey, that's cool. That's great. Yet I know some journeys you are going to do by yourself. Last week, or maybe this week, Monique and I went and looked at a house. And Monique said, George, I want this house. I said, I like the house. And then I asked Monique, what are you going to do to get it? She said, well, what we can do. Monique. If you want the house, what you going to do to figure it out? Don't put me in it. Don't put me in it as for me. Tell me how you're going to get it by yourself. So some journey, you will have to walk by yourself. And if you can't walk by, hello?
So about the listening, George. You're right. I'm not sure. And that may be the best example, but you're right that this is a journey that you take alone, for the most part, and you likewise along that journey you find like souls that are in the same place that you are, and you can travel together, but the decisions have to be made individually. I agree with that part. But I'm not sure that yes sir, I'm just not sure that I follow your example of what we're trying to say here today. Pastor, were you saying something?
Well, can I answer that one? Well, Ron, Reverend Richard, may I answer that for Ron?
Yeah, go ahead. Because I
okay, Ron,
clear on what you.
What I was saying was this: the journey may be by yourself. If you want to do something, well, to put it like this, if I want to do something, the minute I gotta ask somebody for help, that may not be the best course of action. It may not be the best course of action. If you want to do something, we're looking at a house. Monique said she wanted it. I just said I liked it. Like don't mean I won't. So when I asked Monique, what are you going to do to get the house? That's first person friendly. Explain to me what you can do. Well, George, what we can do. No. You can't include me in something what you want, because I may not want to do. I may not want the house.
This is a good example.
May I, George, please?
Pastor Gary.
Go ahead, Red.
First of all, the thing, the idea of warning the house is different than what Ron is talking about. In that, I'm saying that you would never get it, because if you and she, a man leaves his wife or his mate, however you want to term it, if they cannot agree on something, it will never happen. And if it does, it's always with conflict.
Yep.
She was right. What we are going to do to get it, if we can't do it, it will not be done. That's the bottom line. And what I am saying is this: when I made a decision that I wanted to do some remodeling, and when Phoebe said not yet, I said okay. The moment that we agreed it was time, it happened. So what I'm saying is this: the moment you said to her what she going to do to get it, she should have just walked away from it. Why? Because it's obvious that you were not going to help her. Now I'm done with that part of it. The journey itself that we are talking about is the journey to commitment. No one can travel the journey to commitment with you or for you. You have to travel that journey of commitment. And once you embrace commitment beyond anything else, that is when the Creator begins to bring people across your path who think the same way you do and have the same commitment that you have. And when that takes place, your commitment appears to be a journey alone, but it's not. It is a journey in conjunction with those who are of right mind, like commitment. Example, there are 13 of us who are facilitators, teachers, whatever you want to call it. We do not travel a journey alone. However, we travel alone. And what I mean by that is this: the 13 of us has become one. And in the sense of our being, being one, that in itself is a journey alone. However, when we are talking about individuals, as in James, as in versus Ron, versus Kathy, or Linda, whatever, we don't travel like that, because it is an impossibility to accomplish anything when you alone. It takes the commitment to be one, as opposed to the commitment to remain an individual. Any questions or comments
So
about this?
one
Does that make sense at all?
and many.
George, is that good for you, man?
Yeah, we good, man.
Okay.
Ron and Sage, this is Vermont. So it is,
I don't know.
hi, it is a commitment of one, but it's the support of many with a similar commitment. Am I correct in that? It's a one but many kind of concept? One but many.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
That support is what makes you one.
Yeah.
Support makes it one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Elaborate a little bit on that, please.
Pastor?
When we look at where we are as a group of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk frequently about covering.
Yes.
If there are 50 people or 500, if they are under the same covering and they are traveling the same journey, they are one unit.
Okay.
And what makes them one unit is that they have the support of each other. Regardless of what goes on, they remain one,
Okay.
as opposed to a split group, okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So you got my support as long as I'm
Yeah.
doing what
This
you're
is Sheldon. To
Even
add,
if you're going in the
to
wrong
add
direction,
when,
I'm-
Pastor was just
You're
talking
gonna-
about,
to keep
that,
me, bring you
company
back.
or that
Okay.
group.
to steer me
How
correct.
it,
Yeah, vice
where the
versa.
individual part comes
Got
in at is that it is only the desire of that person and that person alone that puts them on the path of this transformation or this growth, this journey that we've been talking about. It does not matter who they associate with. It does not matter who's around them. It is only the desire of that person themselves to go along that path. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing around them, but it's the desire to push within themselves to go on that journey. That is the only part that is individualistic in terms of you have the power to do that. It is a journey of self-awareness. And you can't expect, or none of us can expect, complete self-awareness from someone or anything else. That is discovered from within, and from within we see our connection to all of these other things. And like Karuba's Pastor Ron just said, but once you do that, automatically the things, the people, etc., are put in place, put in your life, whether they were there all the time or not, to the point where you recognize them, and it facilitates that growth that you desire.
May I also add to that, Shep? If we look at the what one alluded to earlier, the apostles or the disciples, let's say the apostles. The apostles were a group. They were one. They spoke with one voice, even though their clarity was not what what we have been taught it was in relationship to what Jesus taught. However, when one came into that group who was self-absorbed and who was pretending to travel a collective journey, however, was in truth on a journey of self, problems erupted. And that is the reason Peter had to challenge Paul, ending with him being pretty much extricated from the group and told to go to Rome and leave everybody else alone because of him being self-absorbed as opposed to being totally committed to the mission of teaching what Jesus had instructed them to teach others. That in itself is, to me anyway, is the clear example of a journey of commitment when the 12 becomes one, as opposed to where 11 becomes one. Actually, a journey of commitment, as opposed to a journey of commitment based upon self-aggrandizement or selfish desires. I'm done.
Very well said. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Let's look at this again. I'm in Genesis chapter 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your country, from your relatives, and from your father's house." That alone is talking about who you are, what you see yourself as, what you have built yourself to be, what your family has built. What is the reputation of your family? Where are you in your position with the Creator? What decisions have you made for enlightenment? your country is talking not only about your culture, but again, as we said before, it's talking about where are you in your awareness. So, from looking at this, this is challenging not only Abram, but it challenged all of us to look introspectively at yourself and say, who are you? Are you satisfied that you are who you want to be as it comes to your relationship with the Creator? You have been brought up with all these gods. You've been brought up in your father's house. You have understood these things. These things have been what has driven you up until this point. What do you want to do? Do you want to remain here or do you want to move on? And as I said from the beginning, I hope that we can each see ourselves in this. And once again, I'm talking about moving yourself to a place where you desire to learn. In John, where we were speaking of last week, and the week prior to that, actually, Jesus says, follow me. That follow is just not coming and walk behind me. It is talking about, I want you to mimic me. I want you to follow my thoughts. I want you to become who I am. I want this to be a part of you. Not just a cultural thing, but become who you are. I want you to feel the rhythm inside of you when I talk to you, when we walk together, when we eat together. I want us to become one individual. And as George said, that starts off as, has to be an individual thought. But the beauty of it, I was examining my life at some point. I do that quite often, actually. But, there have been things that I've done in my life that I may not have been so good at. And just to give examples of that, I could never be in the NBA or throw a football like Patrick Mahomes, or even have the knowledge that Barbara has in the medical field. That's not me. But what is equally belongs to all of us is if your desire is strong enough, if you truly have the desire to know truth, then this is equally available to you. You don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to own property. You don't have to pay for it. It is already in you. That's the beauty of this. So this has to be a commitment. If you desire to the point that you are committing yourself to growing, I will do whatever it takes to learn of myself and to move into a position of being a spiritual being, then that is the direction you will go in. And that's where your growth and your challenges start. So your relatives, all the people, all the things that you have been comfortable with, all that, again, your culture, down to the foods that you eat, all these things that have made you you. I want to take a look at it and I want to challenge this. Questions, y'all? And to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. This is a mouthful to me, and it seems so simple to say. Like, for example, blessing is not only talk about it in exalting, it is talking about bringing you to a better place or a new place of awareness. We look at blessing, it talks about to kneel down. So this kneeling down, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, it's talking about opening yourself up. It's almost like, but it's like you telling me, Ron, I'm going to teach you how to be a doctor. But the kneeling down is I submit myself to this process. You say, well, Ron, it will take however many years. Are you committed to this? I have a decision to make. If I say that I will commit myself to it, I desire to do it, then the openness, I have to move out of the way the things that I think I know, the things that are important to me, even my time. Because everything about me is changing. I need to rearrange my life to become a doctor. So the blessing here is taking you to a new place of awareness. It is a place that opens you up. It is a place that will not show you anything new, but to show you the rhythm that is already there, to connect you with who you already are from your core. And I will make you a great nation. I will, I'm going to grow you. I'm going to show you all from anew and refresh who you are. And these things that that have been in you all this time, you will see that it does not feel like this is something brand new to you. That's the thing about it. You recognize that this is not. You get off the phone sometimes, and I listen to one of the teachers and pastor talk about things, and I say, wow, I like that. I feel good about that. I hang up the phone. I can't tell you anything was said. Half the time, I can't tell you anything I said. But I know that it's in me. It resonates with me. The rhythm, it's almost like I hear a symphony, and it calms me, it soothes me, and I become one with it. I may not be able to repeat it at the time, but when the time comes, I will have it available to me. Does this make sense to you?
It does.
And again, I'm talking about moving in a place of you becoming what you are seeking. You are seeking to, all that means, the discipleship means, I'm going to become this. I'm going to become what this thing is up to. Just like I use the example of a doctor. I'm going to become this. And the whole time that I'm doing that, I'm being brought into different and higher, for lack of a better term, levels of awareness to show me and give me confidence in who I am.
So Ron, you're saying, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Emma.
Well, I was just thinking, so all I have to do is desire to have what God wants me to have, or to become with the universe, or to become the universe, and just set my intent and just be.
That's it. Just be and be willing, because the commitment involves you. It involves, there's nothing that we set out to do that is not, that is worth having, that is not, it involves a commitment. It involves your time and your effort, and it's not to say that is something that is, that make it sound like you got to do homework or you're going to work or something on your job. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying being open to who and what God shows you. There are concepts that we are studying right now that none of us 6 or 7 years ago would have probably understood. But we have grown to this point, and the Creator has moved us to this point gradually that now we can see things and say, why? Because the commitment was there. The commitment was there. So that's what I'm talking about. Be willing to make that commitment. But yes, ma'am.
And so
that answers your question.
And so when you get time, can you explain what nations is, please? What it means?
The nations is not just, you would think it's just talking about people. It also talks about a descendant, the descendants of. But nations also talks about to be exalted. To be exalted. So when I say to you, you are descendants of Abraham, it does not mean that you have to be Jewish. It does not mean that you have to follow in that type of lineage or be able to understand Judaism and that sort of thing. It's saying that I am the descendant of truth. I am the descendant of he who has set forth to find the Creator, to find what is inside of him, and understand who he is. So the nation, because it tells us all the families of the earth will be blessed. This is what this is talking about. You will be be exalted if you have the desire to be exalted or committed to what this is growing you to be. So this nation is not just talking about, or it's not talking about a designated border around land. It's talking about the spiritual connection that you would have with each other and with the universe, the oneness, the completeness that we all are growing to be. Does that make sense?
Well said. Thank you.
Anyone else? Y'all don't help me to see something more.
Right.
Yes, sir.
When we talk about the, and being desire and just be, that is foreign to us, and that's probably one of the reasons it's difficult to do or to understand. Because all of our lives we are taught to desire an education, to desire to be prosperous, or whatever that means, right? However,
Yes, sir.
when it comes to our desiring to not only know who we are spiritually, but desire to be one with or to understand truth of the nature of it, we honestly don't know what we are desiring. We don't even know what it looks like. So when we talk about desire and have a desire and just be, to me it's saying have a desire and just be still. And don't try to shape it because you don't even know what your desire is going to look like when you get what you desire. Because desire, as we have known it, results in the acquisition or the attainment of something that's totally physical or earthly. Whereas desire from a spiritual perspective is something that's foreign to us because we've never been truly exposed to it.
Yeah.
And once we have been exposed to it, then we begin to have a different relationship, not only with who we are, but a relationship with the universe itself. And even though we still don't know what that desire looks like, we have some sense of what the experience may feel like. And even having that sense, it still shapes us when we have that experience. So this whole concept of desire is based upon trust. Not so much trusting in the sense that we have been taught to trust, but trusting that our desire will be guided by forces unseen or forces that are true to what they present themselves to be. And those forces are the forces of energy that you cannot explain, that you cannot physically embrace, but there is a knowing in you that allows you to see or to experience the real nature of them. And it's not because we have been taught that feeling as much as it is, that feeling or that experience has been created within us. And we've been made aware of something that has been there all the time. And the reason it is so different is because we have been force-feeding ourselves to experience a religious or religious concept that is truly foreign to the nature in which we were, the essence rather, of our creation. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It does. It does indeed.
So, with Abram, with the apostolic journey, the journey itself is foreign, yet you stay on the journey. And I don't know whether I'm jumping ahead or not. If I am,
Not at all.
no. And that is one of the reasons that with the disciples slash apostles met with such difficulties in carrying out what they had been charged to carry out. The commission was go and teach, go and immerse in the things that you have been taught. The difficulty with that was there was a strong residue of the religious concept that they had grown up with, and they found it difficult to walk away from them. They found it difficult to embrace everything that they had been taught, and that was one of the troubling things about them leaving the upper room. When we really think about it, they did not leave the upper room out of commitment. They left the upper room out of fear.
Yes.
And if we read the story of that, it's a huge difference. This journey that we have embarked upon is not a journey based upon fear, but it's a journey based upon committed desire to understand the nature of what spirituality is versus religion. Does that make sense?
It does. Barbara was gonna say something. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
Barbara was gonna say something earlier. I just didn't want you guys to forget her.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, let's just make sure I don't get us off track. After everything that's been said, Ron was talking about cycles of well, he was talking about the things that we do as we progress on the journey, if you will, to self-awareness. We were talking about 12 last time, and not the number 12 in and of itself, but what it represents. That's what you said, Ron. It represents one of the things that I in my study, cycles of experiences towards the higher consciousness or knowledge or wisdom, cycles of experiences. And what you just did was you went back into Genesis and you described one cycle of experience where Teron lived in a certain place, but he decided to move. And he decided to move with some of his son and grandson, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever experiences he had in his land of original origin, it changed. And so here's another cycle of awareness beginning. Then Abram was directed to leave. That's another cycle, if you will, in terms of awareness. And if you go on down the line, you know, Jacob had to do his thing, and all was leading toward that part of self-awareness or higher knowledge of who they were. But the other thing I wanted to add into that is that if you'll remember who we were, where we came from, and then we were stolen, and we were transported in a ship, and we were dispersed all over this country as a black people. And that's another cycle in a sense. And of course, we lost our awareness to some extent, some portion of our awareness, still rooted in there, but it's by culture, by religion, whatever. The point is, if we had not been transported and through whatever cycles we have, and started our own spiritual journeys, and had a teacher that showed up when we needed it, you know, we would not have been here for such a time as this, right here, right now, in this country. And so everything is cycles of awareness. And the other thing is, you keep saying love. Jesus was in the middle of the 12 disciples, He was the 13th entity, if you will. And it was the glue. The entity of the Christ was the glue that held the 12 together and molded them into the oneness. Just like the Levites back then, when all the tribes of Israel got their lands, 12 tribes, there were really 13 tribes of Israel. Levi was one of the ones. But Levi was pulled out to represent the oneness, the Hashim, the source. And so did not receive separate land. And so all 12 does is it's representative of all of the things that we go through in our self-awareness that point us to oneness. So I guess that's it.
I think that's a lot. That's a lot. Thank you. That is a beautiful segue into the conclusion I want to use. Please note that does not mean the lesson is over, but I just want to kind of piggyback off what Barbara said. We are, as what I wanted us to say, we are a part of this journey that we're talking about with Abraham and with Jesus for that matter. What I see Abraham doing is cleansing the land. He is taking authority over what the Creator told him that I will give you. And this is not just someone walking out in the woods and taking a journey. This is a deliberate step in power and authority. Also, likewise, what Jesus was doing, we look at all those miracles and we see that, he did this, he healed this person, the one with issue of blood, all these things, but all this was building something. All this was showing you something. And I think to reference something Solomon said, there is nothing new under the sun. And what I'm taking at to say is, we are at a point, and I'm talking about those of us who sit here in 2021 are taking in this lesson. There is nothing, no experience that the human being can have that we have not experienced. There is nothing that is not inclusive of your discipleship. There is nothing that can surprise you, that you can say is more evil in the world, or something that has never been done. All of this is built in you. And you see now, as we grow into this, who we are. And Pastor mentioned the upper room. And what I'm saying is, here's how I see us. I mentioned earlier those, and this includes loved ones, and I even said this includes some of us that are on this phone. Everybody is not fully committed to this. And that is okay. You can get off the ship at any time. But those of us that are committed, we need to operate and know in the assurance that we are on the right journey. The assurance that not only are we the path that we have taken, we is been individually, but it is also the same oneness that Abram took, that Moses took, and that all of them took. We are at a point where time is standing still. They have made men go back to work. They have started the process over. The NBA start all of that. But time stood still so that the spiritualness of man could or that man rather could take a look at his spirituality and recognize who he is. And we are at that point now. And I was trying to think of a way of putting this. And the only thing I could come up with, because I thought about fire, but that doesn't do it justice. I want to talk about water for a minute. If you look at this, I look at a piece of ice as a man who doesn't care anything about his spirituality. He is hardcore in the fact that he only wants what the earth has to offer. And the earth may be, to him, it may be his riches, he may be his job, he may be a pastor who has 25, 100, 3,000 people, and that is all that he wants. But whatever it is that he wants, he's not moving closer to worry about what the Creator has designed for him and to become enlightenment for others. I look at water as those who are in that transformation, and they have a choice to make. They have a choice to go here or go there. I look at the 12 disciples under Jesus as part of that water. And in their uncertainty, not to say that they were not committed, but in their uncertainty, because I think, and I do not mean this arrogantly, but I think we are in a better position because of them and all of those who have come before us. So I look at us as being the mist, the vapor. And that's why when I talk about discipleship, the disciple moves on to become an apostle.
What do you mean by that?
And the apostle, the vapor cannot stay in one place. The vapor becomes enlightenment for the land, and it goes wherever it is needed. Wherever someone needs to inhale and to breathe and to feel right, that's the vapor that they inhale. Wherever someone needs water, wherever someone needs some type of life, that is what we are becoming. And I have become. And I see it to the point now that this is what the earth is crying for. God stopped everything because the earth is crying for life, to recognize life. And if you are the vapor, if you have the ability to go anywhere and sit in your living room, can go to the mall, can go on your job, and just be enlightened, that is the apostle.
Leaving that bad cup, right, Ron?
Not open your mouth. But all of this stuff that Barbara mentioned, all of these cycles, all of these things of the 12 that we talked about that has grown and has developed, has made us stronger. And it's not only a part of us, it defines who we are. So this inward journey, as I said from the beginning, a lot of people identify what is external. They identify with what is what they have. Just the verses says what their country and culture has deemed to be important. But
I thought you had
you
breakfast
have
already.
to look internally at yourself, and you see something different, and you recognize that all these concepts have been empowered in each and every one of us.
I know something.
And as the vapor, we are no longer passive. We no longer have to sit still. We are active in this universe. We take an active role. It doesn't matter what happens in Congress. It doesn't matter what happens to the Republican Party. It doesn't matter what happens to the Democratic Party or who was elected president. It doesn't matter what happens in London, England, or the virus that we see across the globe. Gather strength in each other. We recognize who we are. We set our desires. I was talking to Kathy about something last night. There ain't one time in the last several years, teacher, that we have a desire something to happen seen it. We'll desire something, and the concept comes to us. It may come to us in a book. It may come to us in something somebody gives us. I was thinking about something on last evening and looking at this journey as far as we've come and looking. I still have books here that some of them I've only read and opened up and read a page or two, but I got something from it and I moved on. Name one thing that we've asked for that haven't been given to us, hasn't been shown to us. So you don't gather all this, you don't gain all this to sit on it. We are empowered to move forward. You are an apostle. You have come from the discipleship, or the discipleship is ongoing. That never changes. But you have become the water hose, and the water hose sheds water on wherever it is pointed. It does not hold the water. It is not designed to hold the water. It is designed to water the land. And that's what I see us as when we started this. That is what the land is crying out for. That is those who have sat by the wayside. It is okay. It is okay because the Creator has appointed us the authority to be enlightened. And I say that with extreme humility. You know what I mean? humbleness. I don't mean that in an arrogant way at all. Not at all. But I like where we are. I like this place of understanding. I like the oneness that I feel. And yes, I do see us in a place of the upper room, but I don't see it as a place that's holding us in fear. I see it as upper room as being an enlightened place, a place of that we can gain new awareness and that we can come together and recognize our oneness and our uniqueness and to move forward. Not out of fear, but out of pleasure and desire to see that love that Barbara mentioned, that compassion that Pastor talks about. See that in the land. We don't know how this is going to look. And half the time you see things and you can't go a week anymore without seeing something that doesn't distract you and say, oh my God, what is this? But you know what? There's nobody that has the strength to compare with who we are. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be sitting here. And I think that is the difference between the disciples of Jesus and the disciples that we are now. I see that he said the greater things are upon us. We don't need to wonder anymore. There is nothing under the sun that you can see that should put you in a place of awe. That you say, man, what? I've never seen this before. We've seen it all. We've experienced it all. And here we see it.
Ron, may I ask a question?
Hey, Cat.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Everything you said is resonating with me. And I want to talk about nothing new. I know there's nothing new under the sun. But when we talk about I do a new thing, we do not recognize it. Where we are now, I feel like everything is in us and it's resonating in us. I think because of the bondage that we've been put in by religion, we're now experiencing what the scripture says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. We are now free to transcend, to become, to transcend and to be able to see who we are. But we transcend to heights and places that we have never experienced before. And there's a newness there, not a newness in that it's something new that was just created on our behalf. It's a newness according to something we've not experienced before. And it resonates on the inside, and we recognize that it is real, but we now have that freedom through spirit to be liberated from these bodies and words. And when we look at the words of the scripture on the page, they take us beyond just the word that's written there. Shelton told us that that word is milpa. And we recognize now that that word being milpa takes us to a place of where we understand that this is our destiny, not our destination, but our destiny, and it opens us up to really see who we are. And as a result, when we talk about setting that course to just be, what will be what? Be one with all that is. And as a result of that, I have to spend time inside of myself, setting time aside to feed my soul and not my mind, and not get caught up, like you're saying, on everything that I see around me. But I really wanted to point out that we are going to go to places that we've not been to before in the spirit, because we are now free to connect wholeheartedly with all that is, because we're moving out of religion and that bondage of religion. And as a result of being free, we're discovering who we are and finding that oneness inside of ourselves. But these are new experiences, not new in the sense of, like I said, something that wasn't created from the beginning of time. It was something that we were not aware of was for us to be able to do and to be able to connect in such a, we talk about sacred unity, to be able to connect in a place of such sacred unity that we transcend all time, all else, and we are one with a womb. I think being able to do that on and I use this word level loosely, but to do that on a certain level has been something that has been foreign to us. But when it happens, it resonates on the inside that it is real, and we know it's real, and we know we're somewhere we've not been before. But I think we're learning that that's a place of comfort, because we're recognizing what your thoughts were on that.
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the clarity. You know, I love this group. I love that because you or somebody always plugs in and says what was omitted and should have been said. In my haste, what I was saying is the human experience is not new. There is, we've seen every type of bondage that you can think of. We've seen every type of inhumanity and every the cruel thing that can be done. We look at the things that Abraham encountered, the things that Jesus encountered, and we gain strength from them because we know that was building our strength in us. But you are absolutely right. You have said in the last couple months probably that we were in a new place, sort of like the disciples when they were getting away across the Jordan. We've never been here before. But and part of what I was saying, again you were saying, is the comfort in that's nothing that we need to fear. Yes, we are in a different place, and that is talking about our place of awareness, our place of recognizing the authority and the oneness and the uniqueness of the Creator, what He has done for us. Yes. I was referring to our human experience. There's nothing that should be able to happen that should bring about a lot of concern or fear to us. But thank you. I appreciate that because that cleared it up perfectly. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And Kathy was speaking, something actually came to mind about where we are in regards to what we are experiencing daily. We've known and we've said it for forever and a day that the true God of this nation and the society is money. Yeah. And the reason that other nations are called third world nations is because they don't have as much money as the European nations do. But also is because of the insecurity that has been sown in these nations by this nation and other European nations. And in doing so, they have been projected as being third world nations or asshole nations, as Trump termed it. And actually, when they say third world, that's exactly what they're saying, what Trump termed it to be. However, what we are actually seeing now is all the projections of what a third world nation looks like has come home to roost.
Oh God, that's it.
The third world nation looks like you have to, as in Venezuela, you have to surround the capital in order to keep the current president in power because the U.S. has sown seeds of dissension in that nation and so on around the world with the U.S., Britain, France, all the European nations. And now what we are seeing is that same thing in this nation. All the money that has been the God of this nation, it cannot save it. As a matter of fact, if God is dead because of the food line that we are seeing. People are starving in the richest nation. That God can't deliver them. The capital looks like a fortress because the nature of the beast has come home to roost. The thing that has been projected and instigated in other places is now come home to roost. The same thing is happening here. So what does all of this have to do with what we are talking about? Reading the signs of the times help us to be able to understand that what we are seeing, what we see as those projections, is the fall of a religion that has undergirded a government that has been a burden among the people of this earth. And the reason it has fallen is not simply because somebody misspoke. It's based upon the desires that have been expressed by those who are in search of truth. And when truth comes to the land, when the spiritual essence of what we have been created to be begin to rear its head and be seen as it should be, it is at that point that the God that governs this earth begins to recoil and begins to hide itself because it understands it doesn't have the power to maintain itself and to keep the attention of those who are in charge, keep the attention on themselves. Now we are in a place where we are actually seeing the remnants of the God that was the governing power in this earth. We're seeing the remnants of it because of the overpowering nature of what truth does. Even though we are at times fail to see the effectiveness of our desires, the reason we fail to see it, I believe it's because we really don't know what we're looking for, and that is the reason we have to be shown it by the universe, and the universe is showing us that the signs of these times is saying to us that the battle that has been raging between righteousness and unrighteousness has come to a head. And without regard to anyone who's been elected to an office, this has taken place not because of an election, but it's taken place because of the desires of the righteous. And even though it appears that the governmental entities has brought this to a place of reconciliation, that's not true. What has done this are the desires of those who live in the cave or has exited the cave and begun to travel this journey of righteousness without regard to the consequences or rewards of it. It's just simply a commitment, not without regard to what may come. And as a result of that, we are beginning to see the underpinning of what has been a damnable thing to this earth beginning to crumble. And the crumbling of it is based upon those whose power has been found in their bank account, in their fortunes. These fortunes are beginning to fall apart. Even though there are those who have gained great wealth during the periods of hardship, we will see that wealth will be with them, but it will not be translated into power and manipulation of the multitude. The power of the multitude is in the hands of those who have the desire to bring justice to this earth, to bring a sense of unicity to this earth. This is a universal power that will not be denied, neither will it be bought or sold by the fortunes of those who are the manipulators hiding in the background. We are definitely in a place of change. We are definitely watching Rome fall. Rome fell physically in the past, and I'm talking about conceptually of Rome. Mm-hmm. Now Rome is falling spiritually because Rome raped the spiritual essence of who humanity was created to be. And they are now in the process of reaping the whirlwind as a result of the damage and the damnable nature with which they have dealt with humanity. And that damnable nature is bringing to its needs the government of the world. what anyone may think or say. This society in this nation built on genocide, this nation built on slavery, greed, murder, rape, you name it, has been the ruler of this world. And now we are experiencing it be brought to justice, be brought to the court of spirituality, and it has been found guilty, and its punishment is being meted out as we speak. Any questions or comments about that?
Woo. Woof.
Does it make sense, y'all? Does this make sense?
Yes.
He pronounced a sentence against America.
Is there any question or comments about anything we said so far? I think Pastor just gave a beautiful summation that we can probably close with. If there is not a question or if someone has something else to add.
Yes.
Look at the trees just blowing.
All of this is that Pastor described that you heard Barbara talk about it, and Kathy and Sheldon and George and everybody else that spoke is an action, an emotion that we have taken an active role in starting. And it is a good thing, and the what Pastor described to us just now, as we started off, we're not just passively sitting here, but we take an active role in what the universe is showing us. And that's just, what we were hoping anyway to kind of get across today. And so it's something to think about and to think about as the week goes along. And once again, if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to text one of us and we'll talk about it. But if there aren't any more questions, that's all that I have today. So, okay. Thank you. Y'all have a great day and a great week. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I'd like to make an announcement before we hang up.
Okay, sure.
I'd like to say that I need everybody's address from Greater the Same so I can send out your statement. And also, I want to wish Craig and Kathy a happy birthday. Craig celebrated his birthday on January 12th, Kathy on January 14th.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And is anybody else, the test was on the 17th?
Oh.
Sure. Oh, okay. Happy birthday. Birthday.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Kathy.